Hello, and welcome back to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast. We're all feeling a little bit like Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day on Wearside, I think, as we witnessed yet another 1-1 draw. But before we go in depth fully on the game, I am going to introduce you to a couple of debutants and a returning guest. Firstly, we've got Tom Albrighton, who loves a bit of drums. How are you doing, Tom? Are you well?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm not bad. I wanted to say shite, but I'm all right. I'm not bad.
We've been better.
Aye, as good as I can be. What about you, Sam? How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Much better than I was at half-time yesterday, but
yeah,
as good as I can be, aye.
And last but certainly not least, we've got former Sunderland Player of the Year and Brazilian centre-forward, Mr. Danny Collins. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
That's all right. We've run out of other guests, so I had to get you back.
Season ticket holder, on
As always, obviously I'll take Alex's lead on this one, and we'll run with a 3-word review. But before we do, we'll have a little run-through of yesterday's game. So it was a game I think both sides would have been wanting to win to show their promotion credentials, I think it's fair to say. Ipswich began with a standard 4-4-2 formation. Jack Ross kept faith with a version of that back three that he has. The lineup was as follows. You had McLaughlin 1 in goal, McLaughlin 2 across the back on the right-hand side, Jordan Willis, centre-half, Tom Flanagan at left-back, left side of defence, Luke O'Nien returned to the side at like a right wing-back position. Denver Hume kept his place on the left. Dylan McGeoch in the centre with George Dobson. And then you had McGeady and Gooch sort of supporting lone frontman Mark McNulty. You sort of touched on it before, Sam. It was a shocking first half performance from us. That culminated in us going 1-0 down at half time. But I think in truth, it could have been far worse. I think Ipswich wasted chance after chance after chance. We struggled to get any sort of attacking cohesion going. And in truth, any sort of passing momentum realistically, let alone sort of attacking cohesion. We sort of opted to just lump it forward at almost every opportunity again. But a change in formation at half time, saw Sunderland bag a goal, probably against a runner play. Actually, our only shot on target, believe it or not. I think we only had 3 the full game even attempted. But it was a good bit of play from Mark McNulty, sort of making a bit of a nuisance of himself, managed to use his strength, teed up Lyndon Gooch, who could just smash it into an empty net, and that's 2 for 2 for Gucci. After that, I think we looked a little bit better, bit of confidence. I wouldn't say it did us the world of good, but obviously it helped. But the game did effectively just peter out a little bit. And I think both sides seemed fairly happy with a point. And Jack Ross and Sunderland went back to Wearside with his 17th 1-1 draw of his tenure in the bag. Can you tell I've done my statistics, lads?
It's good work.
Can you tell?
Yeah.
See? On a hangover as well. Not bad going, is it? We'll go straight into the 3-word review, which is littered with very similar things. You may notice a particular theme that runs through it. Hillwalker 70, he said, history repeating itself. David Collins, any relation?
No, don't know Dave. Sorry,
No,
Dave.
Dave.
If we are, I'm not sure.
Distant cousin, perhaps?
Could well be.
He said not good enough. Jake Collinson said Jack Ross out. Spiky Monkey, 84, said still early yet. Anthony Waterson said meh, meh, meh. It's technically one word that, but repeated.
We'll allow it.
Should we let it in?
We'll allow it, yeah.
Meh, meh, meh. Johnny Stace, 85, says too many formations. Tom Deland said keep it simple. Graham Field, new manager required. Michael Scott said Samaritans on standby. Jamie Davison also said Jack Ross out. Mac and G said no words needed. Dean Cummins, bring back Keane. Martin Wigham, Ross Shags 1-1s. Eve West said Maguire must start. Also had a profile photo of her with Chris Maguire, so I'm sensing a tiny bit of bias and potentially that's playing into her thoughts. South Standards even said Ross formation roulette. And then William Mangum said, I think the best one. He said, for Fox's sake. Thought that was quite clever, that. Do you think he thought about it, or do you think it just came straight out of it? Do you think it was just a momentary thing?
I just think that's knee-jerk.
Knee-jerk?
That's knee-jerk.
Knee-jerk, oof. So there's a lot of anti-Jack Ross tweets there. I'll stay on the fence with my personal opinion as it currently stands, but I'm going to come to you, Tom, for... Tom.
Spit it
come
out,
to you
Gareth.
first. I'm getting there. What did you make yesterday's game, Tom?
What can you say, really? It was just rinse and repeat. Tom Flanagan is still getting picked. I can't for the life of me say how you can still keep on picking him. It was clear, even in pre-season, that back three just wasn't going to work. I think we're much better set to a flat back four. And I just think, really, Jack Ross he's abandoned his old formation too soon for me. It was a system that wasn't always the most entertaining. It wasn't always the flashiest, but it was a system that only just fell short. In the summer, we recruited. We've seemed to address issues, sort of like, down the lines of bringing in Dobson to get that box-to-box midfielder in, because especially losing Catamol and Ledbetter's a bit, his legs have gone, I think, is the fairest thing you can say about that.
Yep.
Having Embleton in instead of Honeyman, so we've got that natural player who's going to, take that Roman role. He's going to make it his own. He's going to be more likely to find that cutting edge. Conor McLaughlin, he is a half-decent right-back. We've seen it. He's done it for Northern Ireland on more than one occasion. And I just think he's given up on it a bit too soon. Why he's done that, beggars belief, to be honest. But I just think it's a little bit stupid how we've signed players to address last season's weaknesses, change formation, and create an entire new set of weaknesses that we are now going to struggle to address until at least January.
Absolutely agree with a lot of that, to be honest, Tom. Sam, what did you think?
Well, I can't remember watching the first half that bad for a long, long time, maybe going back to the Championship season or even the dreaded David Moyes season, where we were just...
Don't swear on this podcast.
We were just chasing shadows the whole match. Like, I'm a big fan of McGeoch. I think he is the most creative centre midfielder we've got. But yesterday it just showed you put a bit of pressure. Like, two people were going in his face and that was him out the game. And then without him picking up the ball in little pockets of space, I just thought we had nothing. But last season, I know it was defensively a problem, but we always seemed to score. I mean, we're scoring every game apart from, was it Barnsley and then the second leg of the...
Barnsley and Portsmouth.
Yeah, Portsmouth.
Season, yeah.
But so I always felt last season that however badly we were playing, we were going to pop up with a goal. But watching yesterday, I couldn't see where it was coming from. I mean, we were just lumping balls up to McNulty, which he has got a bit of pace in behind. But even if he won it, there was no one around him. And I mean, Ipswich, they did play well, but they just seemed to be lumping balls forward. But because they had the bodies up front, they were picking every second ball up. And every time they kicked a ball forward, I thought they were going to score in the first half.
Like Norwood and Jackson are huge lads. Norwood
was covering every blade of grass on the pitch. He was like backing right back defending. And the energy they showed in the first half compared to us, it was so much better. And they were probably very unlucky to only be 1-0 up at half time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Danny, how much of the game did you catch yesterday?
Only the highlights, 2-3 minute
highlights. That's all that there was.
Low lights, is it then?
Low lights, yes.
Yeah, from what I see, looked like they were under the cosh for the majority of the game and managed to nick a goal. Obviously, looking at it from a defender's point of view, Luke Chambers for Ipswich has probably just put it in the stand. He's tried to be a bit clever, and McNulty's nicked it off him and squared it, and Gooch has managed to get the goal. If you take any positives, I think it's one of them where you've not been at it, you get back on the bus and you've managed to take a point. And from the 2 games so far, they've gone behind in both games and managed to come back into it. But as you're saying, same story as last season in terms of too many draws, and it's continued early on. Formation-wise, I say I didn't watch the full game yesterday, but I went to the game last weekend against Oxford, and obviously Jack trying out his new formation in terms of a back three. From looking at it from my point of view, I don't think there's balance at the back. I think you've got 3 right-footed centre halves, if you like, playing across there. I know you've obviously mentioned Tom Flanagan. He's playing on the left of the 3. He's not left-footed. I think he's obviously, Jack Ross is encouraging the keeper to throw it out and try and play. And the longer the game went on last week, I don't think the lads were too keen on receiving the ball off the keeper. They didn't look like they wanted it, if you know what I mean. You could hear a few groans around the stadium, and they looked like they wanted to get pushed up, and for McLaughlin to kick it long. As you say there, you've got Grigg and McNulty up top, who aren't really target men, who are going to get hold of it and fight balls all day. And centre half, myself personally, if you're kicking balls up, I'd fancy myself to win it 9 times out of 10 against the pair of them.
You went to the game last week. And we spoke a little bit last week about Elliot Embleton, who some people didn't think he was too great last week. I thought he was no better, no worse than a lot of people. And
I agree.
It's his first game. He's a Sunderland lad and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think, like Tom said, I think he does sort of fill that role that Honeyman's left to an extent. Were you quite surprised that he took him out of the game against Ipswich?
I think I'd done the fan zone before, and I got asked a few questions. Obviously, he played for us down at Grimsby last year, and I'd say his best position for me is in a 4-2-3-1, the one in behind the striker. He gets in the little pockets. He's good with both feet, and he can make things happen around the edge of the box. And what I will say about him is he wants to work and he wants to learn hard. And I think his confidence will be like he starts last week. He gets hooked after 15 minutes and he played an hour, I think, didn't he, last week?
Yeah.
Did he get on? I don't think he got on yesterday, did he?
No.
Do you know what I mean? So again, he'll be like sat there, I'm back out of the team again, and his confidence will perhaps took a little dig. Yesterday they needed a goal. Try and go on and win the game, and perhaps chuck him on to see if he can make something happen. But he's not come off the bench. I just think he's a player. Give him 5-6 games. It might not happen for him in one game, but just keep him in the team and get his confidence up. And he's just perhaps got that little spark where something can happen. Like your McGeady's or Gooch, one of them players who can make something happen in and around the box.
Talked about formation a little bit before now.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I wanted to sort of pick up on as well, Danny, is you've played under a few managers as a player. You've changed formation 3 times in a game. You're dragging players off like Denver Hume at half-time, which I don't necessarily disagree with. When you're changing a formation 3 times in a game, there's 2 trains of thoughts here. From a player's perspective, is that a sign that he's losing the plot and the players don't know what they're doing? Or do you praise him for having the balls to admit he set us up wrong and change it in-game?
I think you can look at that both ways. I think probably his pre-season he's worked a lot on, we're going to go with this back 3, lads, we're going to stick to it as much as we can and then obviously, as you say there, he's changed it quite early on. We had the same at Grimsby last year. We'd done all pre-season, we worked back 3, and 70 minutes into the first game we went to a back 4. Do you know what I mean? So you've done all that work sort of 5-6 weeks pre-season. Sometimes it looks good, and I think in a 3-5-2 you have to be good on the ball, if and you have to look after the ball well. And if that's not happening, then you can see pockets and space opening up for the opposition. Now, obviously, he's saying Denver Hume's gone off yesterday, who's left. So after that, I'm guessing who came on, they haven't got a left-footed player across the back then.
Changed the whole formation.
So you're losing your balance again there. I mentioned it. You haven't really got your balance with the left pegger on the left-hand side then. He could look at it from his point of view as he wants to get Chris into the game, look at trying to get him back into the game and to try and, Chris is a creative type of player. So you can look at, well, he's taken out a defensive-minded player in Denver Hume and he's brought Chris on to try and create stuff and to get him back into the game. So from his point of view, you could probably say it's an attacking thought. But again, you're chopping and changing. If you're out on the pitch as a player, you might be looking over to the bench thinking, oh, fucking hell, we're chopping it again here. We're changing what we're going with now. Do you know what I mean?
Talking of Jack Ross, I think it's a hot topic of conversation, to be fair. And I think, and you kind of judge everything by Twitter, because if you do, bloody hell, you'll get a very warped view of the world, if I'm honest. But looking at Twitter, it seemed like things have turned on Jack Ross. It was previously about 60-40 in his favour, 50-50 maybe after the playoffs. Now it feels horribly a bit like, well, not horribly, it's, I suppose, the proof's in the pudding that he's not doing enough at the moment. Sort of 60-40 against him. But I'll throw this one to Sam. What's your thoughts on Jack Ross and staying in the job? Is it too early to sort of write him off already in this season?
To answer that question, I'd say it possibly is too early because it has only been 2 games. But I was always Jack Ross in towards the end of last season when it started the first turn, when we missed out on the automatics. And then when it turned again after the playoffs, after the playoff final, I was saying, given he's got another transfer window because he didn't seem to know his best team throughout the whole of last season. So
still doesn't, does he?
That's what everyone was saying, get a good pre-season under him. Hopefully he'll come out. And he picked his own formation, changed everything, so you're thinking this is his team now. But watching yesterday did start to worry us a bit, and especially when he was chopping and changing, because to be fair to him, he can't win because we say he should change things when it's going wrong, and he did yesterday, but it did just look a bit desperate towards the end when he was chopping and changing the formation and dragging Hume off at half time. That's not going to do his confidence any good. Dropping Embledon after one game, that's not going to do him the world of good. And I feel like he still doesn't know his best team. And in a game where we've trained a certain way, I never feel like he has a plan B. I feel like the players just look like this isn't what we expected. What do we do now? When we're very reactionary. We never seem to take the game to people. We seem to see what they do and then react to that. And by the time you do that, it's either too late in the game or you're 1-0 down.
With the players we've got in the team, and I don't want to come across as overly arrogant here because there is some good sides in this league. And I think, a lot of people talked down Oxford last week. I think Oxford have a good team. I think Oxford are probably missing a centre-half and a centre-forward from being a playoff sort of team. But they're better than maybe... There's a lot of teams basically are better than you can give them credit for. But on paper, we've got to be in the top 2 best teams in this league. And football's not played on paper, but how many... I mean, you've got teams... You had Bolton yesterday who played a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids. We've got Max Power and Grant Ledbetter on the bench and Maguire. I mean, our bench yesterday was...
Most sort of
any other team, wasn't it? Any other team. And I think we shouldn't be worried about whether or not we'll be up or around the top 2, top 3. And we certainly should have, after 64 games, sign of hope. So I suppose my question to you, Sam, sort of just directly one-word answer, yes or no, would be, let me quote there for anyone who noticed, Ross in or Ross out?
In at the moment. I'd still say in, yeah.
So I'll throw sort of the same sort of question to you, Tom. What are your thoughts on Jack Ross? And then are you Jack Ross in or are you Jack Ross out?
For me, I would say the easiest way to describe it is sort of after the playoffs, I was very much give him time. The scars of the seasons before, they were still there. And I think everybody deep down kind of knew that we still had a little way to go, but the summer was the perfect chance to do that. After the Oxford game, I was like, let's give him 10 games, let's see where we are. But after the performance yesterday, there was no reaction to the week before. It was the same problems. So in that 90 minutes yesterday, I've very much gone from let's see where we are in 10 games time to now Jack Ross has got 8 games to change my mind. So for me, at the moment, I'd edge towards Ross out. However, what managerial options have we got if we do get rid? And that is the catch-22 at the moment, is I certainly can't think of a manager where we could realistically get for a realistic fee, because obviously at this stage in the season, there's a lot of new managers starting, a lot of managers on new contracts and whatever, so you're going to have to pay to get those kind of managers. And I just can't see anyone who's a reasonable target who we could afford or who would want to come here, because they're already doing a good job elsewhere under a lot less pressure than what Sunderland would give.
Do you not think Jose would fancy it for a season?
To be fair, that bloke's crazy enough that he might do it, aye.
Oh, we've had our fair share of crazy managers as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I think after Paulo, that was enough. It's just a nice
another available
manager.
name, bit of Paulo. So I'll word it differently to you, Danny, ever so slightly. You're a professional footballer, you're in pre-season. You've built a team, you've got an idea of where you're playing. The first few games hasn't gone so great.
Yeah.
The fans still remember the 60 previous games where there's still a bit of frustration left over. Obviously, you're not in the minds of the players that are playing on the pitch, but from what you've seen, and say the Oxford game, do you think the players know what they're doing and have faith in Jack Ross themselves?
Going back to the Oxford game, from what I've watched over the 90 minutes, I think you could see he's given a game plan of what he wants to fight. McLaughlin's getting on the ball. The back three, obviously, the two wide centre-halves were splitting. There were times in the game where he was thrown out to them and they could pop it out to the wing-backs and stuff. The longer the game was going on, I thought Oxford pressed them a bit more. And then, if I was in the Oxford team, straight away I'd be going, right, they haven't got a big Charlie White was obviously not fit. They haven't got a big target man as such. You've got Will Grigg, who backs in a bit, but he's not the biggest. No. And you've got McNulty as well, who's not the biggest. So if I'm a centre-half playing for Oxford on the day, I'd say get pushed up and make them kick it long onto us. And as I said, 9 times out of 10, I'd fancy us to win the first balls, and then it's a case of putting Sunderland on the back foot and getting them pushed into their half. And the longer the game goes on, as you say there, they were a goal down and the crowd get a bit restless. You can hear a few groans in the stadium, and the last thing the Sunderland fans are wanting to see is that is one of the centre halves smashing it 40-50 yards up the pitch to Will Grigg. He doesn't win the first ball. It either goes through to the Oxford keeper or they pick the ball up and the groans, and it just it carries on from there. And you're looking, where can we go on from here? I think he brought Chris Maguire came on. He only gave him sort of 5-10 minutes if that, didn't he? Perhaps give him a bit earlier. McGeady came on as well. Yeah. Just thinking, get them lads in the game a bit earlier, give them half an hour, and try and turn it around and go with the plan B and try and create some stuff in a different way, get the ball down and try and zip it about a bit. You
mentioned before about the crowd. I mean, I'll openly admit I know what it can be like with the crowd. Yeah. Sometimes that it doesn't take much for us to turn. No. We care a lot. But I remember a particular game that you played. Yeah. Against Plymouth, where you had a howler. Yeah. Let's be honest about it. And the third goal, I think it was your fault. Yeah. It was our fourth defeat. And then we go to Bury, we get beat down. I think we got beat down Southend. But turn it around a year and a half later and you're player of the year. Turn it around 6 months later, you're playing consistently in left back. People would have probably thought, when Keane comes in, he'll get a new left back or new centre half. Danny Collins will be gone, Neil Collins will be gone, all those sort of players. And you weren't. You knuckled down. I can understand how it can get a player down and how it can make them a bit worried. But as a player, do you not need, if you're going to come to Sunderland,
Yes.
do you not have to have broader shoulders and
Yeah,
just
you do.
expect it? Like, how did you deal with the groans and the moans and then turn out to be the player that you were with the kind of affection that we have for you?
It's as you say, I came in. There was a lot of us at that time came in from below, League Two clubs. I go back to Dino came from Oxford, Liam came from Mansfield, myself, Neil Collins from Kilmarnock, was it, somewhere up in Scotland? So we're
Dumbarton.
Dumbarton was, that's right. So we're all coming in from where we're used to probably playing in front of between 5,000 and 10,000 at a maximum on a Saturday afternoon, League Two games. You come here, you got the facility, the training ground straight away. You walk into it, you're like, look at this to what you're used to, porta cabins more often than not, League Two clubs. The stadium itself, you're going from playing, as I said, in front of 5,000 to 10,000, straight away. When I came here, we were sat third or fourth in the Championship. So there's 40,000 in the stadium, demanding, expecting of
more
the lads to go out.
Then,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so naturally, if you're going out there on a Saturday, you need to grow, you need to get used to the surroundings quick. And I just think over time, the more games you play, the more experience you get from playing in the stadium. The big stadium, same in Newcastle up at their place. You're going into these stadiums where people live and breathe football, not just on a Saturday, but throughout the week. Around the towns wearing the shirts daily, and you have to become accustomed to it quick and to grow. And if you can't, you're gonna get you get swamped with it and you go under.
Do you think that some of the players, now I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but I'll say Tom Flanagan maybe here,
right.
And also Jack Baldwin to an extent, who's nowhere to be seen. But there's certain players like that who maybe started off all right last season, almost like they were like, oh, bloody hell, I'm at Sunderland, but they've gone the opposite way. I think, do you see anyone like the Tom Flanagans of the Sunderland team actually coming out of this lull and maybe doing what you did, essentially, and becoming like an integral part? Or do you think they're just not going to, do they look like they can't hack it?
As I say, it's tough for me to judge, obviously playing a lot myself last season and judging off what I've seen so far. And I know a few people are digging Tom Flanagan out, but in a way it's like me playing on the right back, if you like. I haven't really got a right peg. I'm 95% left footed, you know what I mean? So I feel sorry, he's the one who's been pushed across on the left hand side. There were a couple of incidences where he may have made a mistake or two last week. As tell me a game on a Saturday where Premier League players don't make mistakes. Do you know what I mean? So it's just dealing with them mistakes and putting it behind you. As I said, when I first come up, if I made a mistake in that, I probably wouldn't get over it till a Tuesday or a Wednesday. The older you get, the more experience you get. You think, right, I've got to put it to bed now. Back out on the training pitch on a Monday morning, get focused, ready for the game either on a Tuesday evening or ready for the game next Saturday. And you can't do nothing about that game that's gone. And you've just got to, so man up and get ready for the next game and try and go out there and put in a 7, 8 out of 10 performance.
How important do you think it is to have, I mean, it's an obvious question, I suppose it's rhetorical in a way, but I'm thinking of the team that you played in and the teams that you played in, there was characters all over the pitch. I mean, we were talking before about Carlos, great character, what a great guy. Nyron, fantastic character. Johnny Evans would have came in at one point. I'm assuming great guy, incredibly professional, which he's shown throughout his career. Darren Ward was an experienced goalkeeper with plenty of character. David Connolly, Stephen Elliott, all really strong characters. And when I think of the Sunderland team, and I think like nowadays, and I think, right, who's the character that's going to put the arm around Tom Flanagan, put the arm around Denver Hume and say, look, you know what? Bollocks to it, get out. The only name that comes to my mind is Chris Maguire. Do you think we lack characters?
I'll say the funny thing for me is the one thing I can't understand in a way is I think he's made Grant's been made the captain. Yeah. Grant hasn't kicked the ball yet this season, has he?
No.
Which,
not a minute.
For me personally, I don't understand in a way. I think if you're sitting down to select your captain, I'm thinking who's going to be out there on a Saturday for me as your general out on the pitch, really. 9 times out of 10 he's going to play unless he's going through a bad, period of form. He's 9 times out of 10 he's going to be the first name on the team sheet. So he's put Grant down as his club captain. I never get this club captain and match day captain business either. You're either the captain or you're not the captain. Yeah. To me, if I haven't seen Grant in pre-season, I don't know. You're saying his legs have gone back, but I think Grant is still more than capable. There's an experience of sitting in front of the back four,
you should be
dictating play. But you've got your likes of McGeough, Max Power, the similar type of players. Do you know what I mean? And from what I haven't seen much of Dobson. I only seen him last week. By all accounts, you're telling me he's a box-to-box midfielder. Last week, I didn't really see that. To me, sort of sat alongside McGeough and just got the ball and played it easy. So they're all like-for-like sort of centre midfielders. In terms of your experience, McGeady's, I think he was captain yesterday, wasn't he?
It was McGeady,
McLaughlin the week before. But your keeper is your captain. I mean, Funny enough, I've left Grimsby now. The keeper down there, Mac, has been made the captain. I always think an outfield player is more suited to being a captain in terms of he gets around the pitch, he can get to people. But if you're looking for experienced lads in the team at the minute, there's not too many other than, say, Grant and perhaps Aidan McGeady, who've got the experience of playing at that higher level, who can, as you say, get the arms around the lads, tell them what it's all about, in front of 30, 40,000 in League One, what they're not used to, having come from clubs perhaps, with a lesser fan base and playing in front of 10, 15,000 on a Saturday. It's not as demanding as what it is when you play for Sunderland.
What do you think, Sam, in terms of, because I was going to come to the captaincy a little bit later on, for what it's worth, I'm fully in the camp with you, Danny, that if you're going to have a captain, put him on the pitch. Yeah. I think from memory, just after you left, because you were captain at the beginning of the season.
I was, yeah.
And then Katz came in and Katz got the on-the-pitch captaincy and Bowler's Ending got the off-pitch captaincy.
I think Lorik Sarna.
Oh, Lorik Sarna. Oh, what a man.
Sorry, Sarna, yeah. It was...
I'm just trying to sound posh.
Yeah, my last game, we played Blackburn at home and I think we beat them 2-1.
2-1, we did.
And then we went down to Stoke the following Saturday. And I was on the bench.
And you got sold a day later?
I put on the bench. Yeah.
To Stoke.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, so we went down to Stoke and I didn't play. And I think, I'm sure Lorik was the captain that day.
He was.
Lorik,
you're right.
Got the armband there. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a strange one. Steve had made me the captain pre-season. I think we got off to a pretty good start. I think we won 2 of the first 3 games. And as I say, he called me in on the Tuesday, told me there was interest from Stoke, and I wasn't going to be playing on the Saturday, which is a strange one where I'm on a high. We're on 6 points out of 9 the first 3 games of the season, captain of the club, and for the manager to call me in and tell me that I'm perhaps not a part of his plans and I wouldn't be playing on the Saturday was a bit of a strange one, but that's football,
That's Steve Bruce. We can criticise him now because he's gone to them. It's all right. What do you think, Sam, in terms of the captaincy? Who would you have given it to? And do you think the whole club captain thing is good or bad?
No, I agree with what Danny said. I think your captain should be the first name on the team sheet. Like you were saying, if you're Tom Flanagan struggling and you're looking, saying, right, who do I go to? And Lebbett is sitting on the bench. He's got no one really on the pitch. I mean, I do think McGeady was probably the right choice yesterday because of his experience, but I don't see him as a leader. It's hard because this was the whole debate last season with Honeyman, and I was a big fan of Honeyman, but I think people got tired of the fact that he couldn't be dropped because he was captain. So I don't know if Ross has went completely the other way this season and thought, right, I'll have a club captain, which I do get a bit confused about, and then I can just pick and choose my team, and then when I've got my 11, I'll pick a captain out of that. Before the season, I would have said Max Power, because I do like Ledbetter, but I do think I don't think his legs have gone, but I don't think he could play every game on 90% of games. So to me, it would have been Max Power before the season. But going on the starting 11 he's got now, it's hard because the obvious choice is McLaughlin, but like Danny was saying, I'm not a fan of a keeper being captain. I think it should be a centre-half or a centre midfielder, someone who's in and around everyone, barking orders. So out of the team he's got, it's really hard to pick if he's going to go with them, because I know Dobson, I think he was captain for a bit of Walsall, but I don't think he'll give it to him. I don't think McGeoch could be captain. I don't think maybe Willis, but he's just came obviously. So
got to teach him to pass the ball first.
I know.
That's the worry with Willis.
It is like.
If you're listening, Jordan, I'm sure you'll get better. Please. Tom, what's your thoughts on Granty being?
Well, personally, I've got no problem with Grant. I think the lines he's gone down is a similar line to Honeyman. If he wants a local lad, someone who gets the club both inside and out, you'll hear a lot of, maybe not as much in football, but in other sports, is that the value of the captain is off the field as well as on the field. But for me, with him choosing Ledbetter and then not picking him for the first 2 games kind of just highlights how he still doesn't know his best side, because if he knew his best side, he would be able to pick a captain. Now, effectively, we've had 3 captains in 2 games because Jack Ross doesn't know what side he wants to play, what formation he wants to play, and so on and so forth. The worry for me is that there isn't really a standout player where everyone could go, yeah, he's a captain. Maybe Willis in the future, but I think it's fair to say he's had a shaky start.
Yeah.
Is probably the nicest thing you can say. I'm sure he will improve, but that then you're looking at changing your captain midway through the season. And I don't know what Danny thinks, but is changing your captain halfway through the season, is that something that is a big no-no because you're taking it from one person to another and creating a split?
It looks silly on yourself, if you know what I mean. I think obviously well, from the way I see it now, is obviously Grant's his club captain. Then last week, McLaughlin wore it because Aidan McGeady didn't start, did he? So I'm guessing that Aidan McGeady's the vice captain because he wore the armband yesterday, yeah. I just think, I don't know, you come to the start of the season, everyone's fresh, everyone's a pick from. He's probably sat down, as you say, they might have thought, Grant, the local lad, knows the history of the club. The fans will like that he gives it. But to me, you know, they've played 180 minutes and Grant hasn't kicked the ball yet. I just think it's a strange one for me. I've been at clubs before where I've been classed as the club captain, and then we've had an on-field captain, which is, you know, you don't know. People are giving tickets out. You know, the captain usually gets the ticket, you know, the match day tickets for the players to give out and stuff. You're looking at each other, are you going to do it or am I going to do it? And it's just, to me,
it takes the respect away a bit, doesn't it?
I don't get the old club captain, the on-pitch captain. Just name your captain as he is your captain. It's like years ago, Peter Reid, is he going to say, oh, Kevin Ball is the captain? Right, but Kev, you're not playing enough. So, do you know what I mean? It's just...
Bawley was... Yeah. And Bawley had an aura around him, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know he's here a long time, and obviously... I know that when he... I mean, it was not well before my time, but before my time. But when Bawley first came in, and so he tells me he didn't play that great. And obviously relegation in his first season as well. But I think when you look at Bawley, you see a captain. Yeah. And I know Katz didn't have the captaincy all the time because he got a few red cards and whatnot. But you looked at Katz and you've seen at least a leader. Grant, if he was playing every week, potentially, in terms of his ability, I think I'll echo what Sam and Tom have said. I've not been impressed with Grant since he's come back.
Right.
To be completely honest, and I think I don't mind him sitting. The worry for me is he does put the ball out from 40 yards. I don't mind Hollywood passes if they reach a man, and so far he hasn't done that. But it's still very early in his comeback, and obviously he's had a lot of personal issues as well, which I'll probably give him leeway for. But would he be automatic in the team at that? Not for me, not at the moment. And also, just to go back to what you're saying, I'd want someone like Kevin Ball on the pitch, someone who's not necessarily the hard man, just someone that you just look at it and you go, yep, that's the leader.
Respect of the players as well,
massively. And sadly, there's no one that sticks out. I'll go back to what Sam said. A few people after me with this, but Max Power seems like, I've heard he's great around the dressing room. That's why he got in the team a lot last year, because he's a good talker. Yeah. Obviously, he seems to have a good bit of banter. Unfortunately, D-Love has now left, so his best mate's gone, and the social media is not as good as it was.
And again, he's another one who hasn't kicked the ball yet, hasn't he?
Exactly. So, apparently unfit, but he's been on the bench, I think, 2 weeks in a row. So if you're fit enough for the bench, you're fit enough for the first team, in my personal opinion. Going back to sort of Jack Ross, because it is a hot topic of conversation, and I think it will be for a while. A lot of the people that are in the Jack Ross camp, they'll turn around and they'll say, well, if he goes, who do you bring in? And you touched on it before. And one thing that I found about that particular question, and I don't know if I'm just on Twitter too much, but there's an awful lot of nostalgia added into it. You'll find, get Super Kevin, get Roy Keane in, get Reedy in. What about Bawley? What about Sam Allardyce? Like, no one really looks outside. I mean, there is people that look outside of it, but even the outside opinions are a bit of a risk. I mean, Gary Rowett was the hot name when Moisey went in. Let's just say he hasn't done that great. Yeah. But I'll throw this one to Tom. Say that Jack Ross got the boot, right? Which manager do you go for? What's the name on the top of your head? And if you don't have a name, what kind of style of manager do you need to bring in?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. First of all, I don't want Gary Rowett because I got a little inside line on him and I got total lump on him going to Sheffield Wednesday. So
and he didn't go.
Absolutely no. He owes us 20 quid for that. But to be honest, there's not a name that jumps out, because if we cast our minds back to when we got Jack Ross in, is everybody at that point was screaming for a young manager, a hungry manager, someone who maybe wasn't the obvious choice. Now we've got that and we're hitting the stumbling blocks that new managers do hit.
Steve Bruce is always a hungry manager.
Yeah, but that's it. But even, you can look at Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United. Wilder, early on in his career, he had a few stumbling blocks. Eddie Howe's had stumbling blocks when he's been at Bournemouth. Good young managers do hit these periods of time where they do struggle. I remember not that long ago, there was discussions that Eddie Howe was going to, he's going to be England manager. Then he was going to get sacked from Bournemouth, and then he's back to being the best thing since sliced bread. Sean Dyche is another one. So managers do have the lulls. Do we sit it out? I don't know. Do we sit it out because there's not a better option? I honestly don't know where to look. I think we've just had every kind of manager under the sun at this football club. we've had the Fruit Loops, we've had the old guard, we've had the up and comers, we've paid fortunes to get in people like Sam Allardyce, David Moyes. It has worked, it hasn't worked. As a club, I don't honestly know what manager suits this team at this point. And maybe that stems from the fact that because Jack Ross doesn't know his best side, is we can't see the best side ourselves.
Yeah.
So we can't really form an opinion on who the obvious candidate is. I think we are in between a rock and a hard place at the moment in terms of Jack Ross, and it is frustrating. So I just don't know where we go from here. I think, and that's probably the last thing we need is we've spent the last sort of 12 months getting the club back on track, trying to get it in the right kind of direction. To sort of destabilise that a little bit isn't ideal. And another thing I'll touch on is on the pitch, is we lack composure on the pitch. And I suppose you can bring it back to captain as you want a captain who's a composed footballer. And, I think that's been a big miss is we've lacked a lot of composure as a team. But maybe that needs to come from the top. Maybe the owners need to be more composed. Maybe the manager needs to be composed. Because the reality is we could win our next 5 games now, and this Jack Ross discussion is almost arbitrary. You know what I mean? That's the fine margins of football. So maybe just having a bit of composure and just sitting tight for 5-6 more games, maybe that's the way forward.
I think I was speaking to Josh before, and we were talking about like young managers, and I think Danny Cowley's another one that's done really well.
Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah.
But then again, sorry, would he leave the Lincoln project at this point in time?
Way aye, of course he would.
Do you think? Because I think that you can see the draw. You can see the draw, but managing Sunderland does come with a hell of a lot of pressure. I mean, Danny touched on it before, just the amount of pressure you get as a player. And I think to an extent with certain managers is that pressure is even more. I think probably the best example would be Martin O'Neill. I remember when Martin O'Neill came in and the pressure on him to do well was astronomical because he was a well-regarded manager, but he was a self-confessed Sunderland fan as well. So he just immediately, there's that extra pressure there. So, and we've seen certain managers, certain players can handle pressure and certain players can't. So I think if we do sack Ross, that is something that needs to be given consideration for, is we need a manager who can handle that level of pressure. And for me, I'm not sure there's a manager in League One who's got that ability. I think when you're looking for that ability to deal with pressure, is you've got to start looking higher than League One. And can we afford that?
Them. Yeah, and will they come?
Exactly.
I think I was talking about Danny Cowley as well, but for every Danny Cowley that could go on and do well, you've got a Paul Hurst who absolutely effectively ruined Ipswich, and now is in the doldrums. But
Paul Clements, another one. He was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Done nothing.
Nah. Sam, and I know you said at the moment you're Jack Ross in, so I respect your views as much as they may be wrong. If you were to replace him, who would you bring in, or where would you look?
The name at the top of my head is Kevin Ball, and it's more for the fans because we've obviously got a great set of fans, but I do feel like when we get managers in that no one knows, like Jack Ross and like we have in the past, it's very easy when things just start to go wrong, see, he's the problem. But I feel like if we get someone in like Bally, who all the fans love and sort of idolise, there'll be a bit more of a togetherness, so they won't just be like, get him out, we need someone new when things started not go to plan really. But I am Jack Ross in, but it's more leaning towards it than firm. But it is more because I think who we're going to get, and there's one thing sacking him, but you've got to have someone lined up, and it's got to be someone who's going to fit, because all I could see us getting is maybe a League Two hungry manager who sees it as like what Simon Grayson kind of did, took a step up to try and save us, and then we all know how that went. So
I think shivers done all of us fans there.
I know.
Top of the league, aren't they, Blackpool at the minute?
I don't think about it.
I don't. Do you not fancy getting your badges, Danny?
Yeah,
Give it a whirl.
I've done my B licence, so yeah, it's something I think I'd like to look at going into, and the coaching side of it. I think so.
Fast forward, you've got
step.
your
I
games.
think
We need a left back, never mind a coach. So if you
if you fancy
I'll
it.
get my boots out.
Need a left foot defender.
Yeah.
Carlos was desperate to get his boots on yesterday as well, so we'll get the gang back
Get the
together,
band
why not?
back together,
Yeah. The next question I wanted to ask you actually kind of relates to. So last night I did a talk in at the Fans Museum. If anyone hasn't been, by the way, fantastic bit of nostalgia, great little place. Someone brought up a question to Carlos Edwards, who was doing the night last night, and he basically asked it quite well. Rather than saying, do you think Roy Keane, because there's a lot of talk about, we talk about nostalgia, and a lot of people go, oh, it feels like Roy Keane has unfinished business. And in a way, actually, I don't know if it's nostalgia taken over for me. I actually wouldn't mind Keane back, but I'm very biased towards him. But the question that he relayed to Carlos was, not so much do you think he'd do a job here, but with these players at his disposal, do you think Roy Keane could get the side promoted with this squad of players?
That's a good question.
Isn't it?
It's a tough one to answer, really, though, isn't it? You don't know.
How long would Tom Flanagan last?
He'd certainly
I'd like to see that.
You're on about, obviously, having your leader on the pitch to get the lads sorted. He'd certainly, in the meeting room or the changing rooms at half time, he'd sort of get into a few of the boys and sort them out in that way. But when he came in, he brought a load of fresh players in, didn't he? As you say, Danny Simpson came in, Johnny Evans. He brought the lads in. Liam Miller, Kavanagh, Ross Wallace. We had a lot of players come in thick and fast, really, and for him it turned around quite quick, and we went on that good run. Yeah. So I imagine, obviously, he'd have to, if he came in now, he'd have to work with the squad what he's got, and would he be able to turn it, turn it round? I mean, obviously, there's only 2 games gone. It's one of them questions you don't know until he's actually in the building. You see how it go, but I certainly think he'd come in, stamp his authority down, and put his own methods onto things, and try and get the boys fired up and used to the surroundings, if that's the word you want to use, in terms of getting them used to playing at the stadium and not to go under when the pressure comes.
I think the big thing for me with Roy Keane, and someone mentioned this, I can't remember who it was, but we're talking about managers that have been successful with Sunderland. And in my lifetime, Peter Reid's the obvious choice. Yeah. Roy Keane is the other choice, and Sam Allardyce. And someone mentioned, and this is where I think Jack Ross fails a little bit. Roy Keane, Peter Reid, Sam Allardyce all had standards. They set a standard at Sunderland, like not just you're playing for Sunderland, but also a case of like, look, if you don't buck your ideas up, you're not going to get 4 or 5 chances. And sometimes I feel like Jack Ross, especially last season, spoke a lot about, the character, we've scored in every game again. I know it's a draw, but the lads have done well to come back. And he was almost giving them that sort of, well, come on, don't be horrible to them. They've done all right. And I understand that. I understand standing up for your players. It's very much an Arsene Wenger sort of way of managing.
In the press, that sort of managers have to try and do that, because I think if players listen to it and then fucking hell, the manager's digging us all out, or the manager sounds a bit morbid, like, then, do you know what I mean?
And I think Ricky Sabrazier actually did that when we conceded against Spurs, and that's when things folded. So I understand not digging players out, and I certainly don't think it's the right thing to do. Yeah. But I think Roy Keane had a very good way of not digging anyone out, but at the same time setting a standard. Sam Allardyce did the same, and he would almost be with his tactics and the teams that he would play. Like Jeremy Lenz obviously wasn't pulling his weight at that point. Yeah. Sam Allardyce didn't play him. Barini went through a little bit of that as well, didn't play him, and brought other people in. And there was almost like a standard where you had players fighting for their position, especially under Keane. Yeah. You had, if someone didn't play well, there was someone that could come in and fill that position easily, no problem. You had Ross Wallace, Toby Hyson on the left. Yeah. And there was a sort of a standard there, and it sometimes feels like Jack Ross doesn't really have an idea of what his best team is anyway, and it certainly doesn't feel like there's a standard there from him that's been set. I am not inspired by that. Keane, Allardyce, Reedy, all really inspired me personally, and I imagine as players they did as well.
Characters as well,
completely. Yeah. Do you think that maybe Jack Ross is just the wrong character for Sunderland?
I don't know. Again, if you look at it from the outside point of view, fans really only get to see an hour and a half of. Do you know what I'm saying? What it's like. Course. You don't see the training ground every day. What the managers. Well, you will if you watch Netflix, I suppose. But you know what I mean. In terms of what the managers are like in the meeting rooms, what they're like on away trips. Half-time talk. All that side of things. You don't really get to see that. Again, you're only judging of what you see over the 90 minutes, and fans have obviously got their opinion of what they're seeing. And at the minute, majority, I'm guessing, aren't too happy of what they're seeing. You know, again, I went to the game last week and I did perhaps expect a bit more for a team who are favourites to go up automatically. A bit more football. The final ball wasn't quite there. You know, it was just breaking down at times too easy. So yeah, I can see the frustration coming from the fans. But again, it's, for me, I think it was mentioned there, it's fine margins in football. So, you know, obviously the fans are perhaps split on whether they want Jack Ross to stay or go. How many, you know, you got to ask the question in terms of fine margins. Last season, they lost, you know, over 90 minutes and a penalty shootout. You know, Sunderland could have won the double, if you like, you know. Yeah. What would the fans' opinions have been of Jack Ross then if they'd have got promoted, if they'd beat Portsmouth in the cup final? It's you know, Jack Ross, you know, you're probably looking at 80%, you know, we're happy with him in that, but because them two results didn't go that way, then
it is fine margin.
He's failed in a way, like if you
really fine margins.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
It could so easily, and I think you touched on it before, Tom, that it's not impossible that we could win the next 5 games.
Absolutely not.
Completely not. And God, absolutely, I hope we win on Saturday because I hate Portsmouth.
But again, that brings me back to what we discussed at the start: is why has a formation that was so close to working, being swapped when every summer signing we've made has addressed a specific issue with an old formation? And that's kind of what I don't get, and I think it's what a lot of Sunderland fans don't get, because we were expecting to see progression of a system that we stuck with for 60 odd games last season, and it's just not happened. So I don't think he's done himself favours in that sense.
That actually was my next question. I was going to say, like, obviously he decided to play a formation of 3 at the back this year, but he hasn't signed anyone that can play that formation.
No.
He signed the weak. You pointed out before, he signed players apart from a big athletic midfield in the middle, because I don't know if Dobson's the guy. Like you said before, that he doesn't look box to box to me.
From what I've seen in the first game, no, he just
like
sat alongside McGee and just ticked it over barely. I didn't see him basics.
But I think the system kind of has negated him a bit, as we mentioned just before the pod, is because the back 3 are so uncomposed, and the lack of composure for me runs through the team, bar a few individuals like McGeady, who's played at some of the highest levels. His time almost slows down when he gets the ball in this division. But when you've got players like Flanagan, he's getting the ball, he's not composed, and he pumps it up to Greg. As a centre midfielder, you must be looking at that, watching that ball going over your head, and watching Will Grigg go up for a header against 2 6'4" centre halves, and think, what's the point of me running 20 yards up the pitch, because I'm just running 20 yards back 10 seconds later? You know what I mean? And if they chased every long ball, all the mid-2 centre midfielders are doing is just running backwards and forwards, just watching the ball just get pumped over their head, because there's a lot of teams in this division who do get the ball, like Danny mentioned before. Is Ipswich, they hit the long ball as well, but they competed. So
they had an idea of someone to pick it up at the top.
But your midfield at that point is a waste of time, you know, especially when you've got 2 midfield. I think Dobson's 6 foot, Mickey Oxley, he's not over 6 foot. He's like, he's tiny, you know, and we're pumping balls over their head. So all they're going to do for a majority of the game is just run backwards and forwards, just chasing a ball that they're never going to really get on.
Just wasting energy, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think ultimately they do end up sitting deeper, because you just can't, you know, it's like that scene in Goal, in it, where he kicks a ball and he can never find. Is that all you're going to end up? Is the kids are just going to run for a ball, they're never going to catch it?
I think, I hate to bring the name back up, but I think a lot of people talked about Josh Madger going, and he misses goals massively, and I think that really, really cost us last season. But the big thing for me, I went to the St Mirren game last pre-season, and there was so much cohesion between Madger, Honeyman, Gucci, Maguire, and they just worked so well together. And obviously McGeady was injured at that point, but we just seemed to know what that team was meant to be about. And there was so much, like, we did have the 2 setting midfielders in that game. I think McGeoch played alongside, I can't quite remember, going back a while now, and that was a heavy day on the Buckfast, I'll be honest. But that front 4 just worked together so well. Now it's almost like because Madger's gone, they've just abandoned it and let it. But I go back to what you said before, Danny. Yeah. I think a lot of teams, maybe just halfway through the season as well, also clicked on that we like to play that from the back. So they were just like, look, he's shite. Just push up against him, he'll launch it. They've got Neil lad up front that can pick it up, because, I mean, Charlie White, to be fair, was coming back from injury. And the one time where Charlie White looked pretty decent, actually that kind of work. The Doncaster game, Jimmy Dunn, and Öztürk just launched the ball out of play. It was Route 1 football because Charlie White was a bit on form and could bring it down and actually give us an option. And there's nothing wrong with long ball football. I quite enjoyed that percentage-based football that Allardyce used to play, as long as you have
the players to do it.
The players to do it, and as long as you say, look, that's how we're going to play. Big Charlie's going to get the ball and he's going to flick it, and it could potentially work. But it feels to me like that's either not what Jack Ross wants, and the players are just too panicked. But then Jack Ross has to come in and say, look, Oxford or whoever it may be, Ipswich, they know we want to play out from the back, so they're going to push up high. This is what we're going to do. And it's easy for me to say that. Like, I can see the problem, but at the same time, I'm not paid to fix the issue. And I think that's the big problem, is that I don't think Jack Ross knows how. I think Jack Ross could get a good team put together. I think he knows what position he wants to play, but when the problems come and the other teams have whatever they're going to do to counteract how we want to play, I don't think there's a plan B there. Well, how the hell do I change that?
I don't want to bring the word up again, but again, the word composure rings true.
Massively,
Early doors last season, we played out a lot from the back. We played the ball a lot along the floor, and the players were composed. They knew that someone was going to be there. They were going to have an option here, there, or somewhere along the pitch. And as the season drew on, and I think part of it was the fact that we were conceding goals, is players like Baldwin and Flanagan started to panic. So rather than look for that pass out of the back or that simple ball, and you see it now because the amount of groans, especially where I am in the South Stand, every time Flanagan or whoever else is playing at centre-back just launches one when there's a simple 5-yard pass beside him. But it's, like you say, it's just so... It's that lack of composure and that long ball that puts the side on the back foot, because we're not winning the ball up the top end of the pitch. Is we made a point last season, me and the lads I go to the match with, is we were looking when the long balls were getting hit and how long it was taking for that long ball to end up back on the edge of our area. And 9 times out of 10, it was like 10, 15 seconds, which is just unsustainable. And then we end up sitting deeper to counteract it, and then it's like a snowball effect. And that's what Jack Ross kind of hasn't addressed. And I don't know, as a player, Danny, how would you deal with that if you're not feeling confident making that pass? Do you just start hoofing it long, or do you force yourself to find that ball?
No, I think obviously if Jack Ross has told the centre half to say to try and split, to try and get it in a 3-5-2. I think if I'm the left centre half there, if I'm getting off the keeper, your first pass is perhaps you're looking for Denver Hume. If he's your wing back, if he's on, he's not, you've got to miss him out. Sometimes the strikers make your decision for you in terms of their movement dictates where you put the ball. Do you know what I mean? If you've got 2 strikers who are just not running channels for you, you can't leave a ball in behind their fullback, or if they're quite isolated in the middle of the park, standing there not offering much, you've got to try and drop it onto them. They're not winning it. Again, the groans are going to come, and it makes you look bad in a way. So, as I say, there, more often than not, I think the strikers or your centre mids, whoever, they can help you out by their movement, and they dictate what type of ball you can play.
In terms of, obviously, there was a lot of, should we say, constructive criticism? At least from you lads, I've not been very constructive, but that's not my job, I guess. But one thing I wanted to look at maybe some positives. So, Sam, has there been any players that have impressed you in the opening 2 games?
I think if going off the last week's game, Oxford, I thought McGeoch looked great.
Yes.
I thought, for me, last week cemented that he should be the first centre mid on the team sheet, unless Ledbetter needs to come in because of the captaincy or whatever. But
McGeoch every time for me.
But then yesterday, it just showed that they had done a bit of the homework, and every time he got the ball, there was just 2 players running at him. And I guess we should have counteracted that with helping him out more. I mean, we just sort of looked at him as if, like, where are you going to pass it rather than moving. But I think McGeoch maybe, and Willis has looked a bit shaky, but I thought yesterday in the 4, as the right centre-back, you could see his pace shining through. Like, if it went over 09's head, he was round the back. And he looked very comfortable yesterday in the back 4, but...
Anything to be said for Gooch? Looked a little bit better.
I thought he was our man of the match yesterday for me. I thought no one had a good first half, but he was the only one that looked like he had a bit of fight in him, and he was holding people off. And he's obviously not the tallest, but he is a bit stocky in that. But no, I thought he was definitely our man of the match yesterday, and I thought he played quite well against Oxford as well.
One thing I wanted to sort of throw at you as well, Tom. I know obviously, I think we'd all agree McGeoch's looked all right in the opening 2 games. Gooch has got 2 and 2. I know one was a penalty. I've been really, I wouldn't say impressed with Gooch, but I wanted to tear my hair out with him at the second half of last season. But with Gucci, he looks a little bit, still hangs on to it a bit too much, but it's nice to see a play with a bit of fire in his belly to change things. When he scores, you can see, like that penalty last week, he picked that ball. It's my penalty. I've won it. I'm taking it. Is there anyone that's impressed you, Tom, and how would you change it if there was anyone you'd like to bring in?
Well, I feel for how much he's done, I quite like the look of McNulty. Yeah, he's just busy and he's at shithouse that we're after. You know, we've got Maguire in there who's always doing that, and I think Maguire's a bit of a fan favourite. He looked good when he came on yesterday. I thought he, you know, we talk about holding the ball up a bit better. He manages to make the ball stick a bit better up the top.
He really does, doesn't he? Yeah, I think that.
He might not be the tallest or the strongest, but he's aggressive. And I think that's what you need in this division. You need a bit of aggression, which is probably why Gooch has looked a bit better this, start of this season. He's come out, he's got a bit of fire about him, like you say. He's aggressive. And McNulty again, yesterday he got the goal because he's just chasing lost causes. I think they're the 3 standouts. However, standing out in that side, bar McGeoch, it's not a hard job at the moment. I mean, even the most solid of players at the moment are looking shaky. I feel like O'Nien yesterday looked suspect at times. What's happened to John McLaughlin? I don't know, because there was no way he conceded that goal last season. Absolutely no way.
Do you reckon there's a bit of a talking about John McLaughlin, a bit of a worry there, Sam, with the whole contract situation? I mean, I was told we'd offered him a contract about a month ago when the rumours of him to go first came along. My worry with John McLaughlin is he's came out and said, well, I can't sign something that's not there. The championship window's closed. Are we just going, well, fair enough, we're under no pressure to get rid of him, and that's knocked him a bit? It would knock me if there's suddenly a contract,
definitely.
and then, has that ever happened to you, Danny? There's been a contract on the table and all of a sudden it's disappeared, and that's affected your mindset, which has in turn affected your
you
form.
get word that perhaps someone's interested or something along those lines, so you might try and hold off on a new deal and just to see how that develops and that sort of stuff. But I don't think it affects you too much once you're out on the training pitch and that you get on with it. Do you know what I mean? You sort of switch off from that until you come back in the changing rooms and your agent's on the phone in your ear and that sort of stuff. Back to McLaughlin there. I mean, I only watched the game. I thought he was okay last week. I thought he was quite good with his feet and that. I mean, I see the goal yesterday where it's got drilled under him at the near post. But apart from that, I haven't seen what he was like in the rest of the game. But I think, was he not pretty steady last season? And
aside from McGeady, probably our best player.
Right. And then last week, I thought he was good with his feet last week. His distribution was quite good in terms of, he was getting pressed. He popped it round the forward pressing him, or he flipped it out to the left back, and he seemed quite composed on the ball for a keeper.
Maybe just have a bit more patience with him.
Right.
Yeah. So leading up to this week, I've stupidly booked up to go to Accrington Stanley. I don't know why, but it is a game of football we have on Tuesday, and then we're leading up to the dirty word, that is Portsmouth, on the Saturday. So, quick question regarding the Accrington game. We'll touch on it ever so slightly. Do we take the League Cup seriously? Try and play a normal first 11, Sam, and get some cohesion going, or do we play a rotated side and concentrate on Pompey?
I think it's got to be rotated, especially like you say with Portsmouth around the corner. Cause I think that's a huge game for Jack Ross. It could turn ugly on Saturday if Portsmouth turn up and play us off the park. But
definitely, if that lad that tried to attack Luke O'Nien turned up, it's definitely going to turn ugly because he was not the most attractive of them.
No, he wasn't, was he?
No. Goblin.
I think you need to take the cup seriously, obviously, but it's got to be a rotated side. And then you never know, we could play with Ledbetter and Power, and they could run the game, and then that kicks people into gear, saying, look what can happen. They might show that they can start against Portsmouth or come off the bench or just kick people up the backside. Really, it's probably what we need.
So maybe get like a little bit of competition going by playing the players that haven't played.
Probably what's needed, to be honest.
Max Power. What do you think, Tom? Do we go in normal 11?
No, I'm the same as Sam.
Yeah.
If we've got to tank it, we've got to tank it. But for me, there's 7 spots up for grabs in that side.
Yeah.
So you've got to give the lads on the bench, on the fringes, a chance to get in. There was discussion the other day. Jack Bainbridge, he played a few games in pre-season, looked solid. Give the kid a chance because, like Danny says, we are digging out Flanagan a little bit. But I tell you what, after Flanagan's first 2 games, I'm not sure Bainbridge could do much worse, to be honest.
No, I agree with that.
And to be honest, if we get a few players who are in and around the fringes, Power needs a bit of fitness. Might do Embleton's confidence the world of good if he gets in, gets a goal, gets an assist. Will Grigg could probably do with it as well.
Got one down Accrington last season, so maybe goes to Accrington and thinks I can back a couple of goals.
So there's spots up for grabs, but there needs to be a change in the mentality. There needs to be a bit more aggression and whatnot. So if we make 7 or 8 changes, we're aggressive, but we lose, I don't think many people will mind, as long as we can say we're working towards something different. You know what I mean? I think if we go to Accrington and it's the same as this week, it's the same as the week before, and it's the same as the way we finished last season, that's when it'll start to turn, and then Portsmouth becomes a hell of a fierce game.
So just to kind of cover off then, my feelings on Portsmouth have been pretty well aired, and I will die on that hill. I cannot stand them. Apart from Hugh. Hugh's all right. I'm doing the extra podcast on this week. I've got to be nice. I know.
It's the bloke with the bell. Bloke with the bell.
God.
Oh, God.
Oh, Pompey, if you're listening, we're not fans.
No.
But Portsmouth game, I felt like Saturday was one of the bigger games of the season because I've tipped Ipswich to win the league. I think Portsmouth have bought really well, which I don't. I wish they didn't. I wish they'd done really badly and suffered horribly. Yeah. But Danny, what do you think? Do you think we can turn over Portsmouth on Saturday?
Of course they can. Yeah, I think certainly no one in the league you fear. So with the squad they've got there, if they can get the right formation, get the right personnel out on the pitch, certainly more than a match for anyone in the league. If they're at it, and as I say, get off to a good start, try and get themselves in front in a game as well, give them some confidence and go on from there. Yeah.
Sam?
Well, like Danny was saying, we have, with the squad we've got, there's no reason we should be fearing anyone. We should be going to win every game, but I am a bit worried for Saturday, just because I could see the fans going from, like you said, being 60-40 or whatever at Jack Ross, it could turn to 90-100% on Saturday if we get beat and played off the park. I don't know if he'd come back from that, but there's no reason why the players can't get up for it and get just a few big tackles. The fans would get up for it, everyone would be buzzing. They just need to use the crowd and the big game to their advantage, really. They need to just get up for it.
Because I think the good thing with Saturday, we may be a bit worried about how the team's playing and things like that, but I think in truth, I think the Sunderland fan base on Saturday, Tom, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, it's going to be so much more pro-Sunderland because of how anti-Portsmouth we've been and the kind of niggle that we have. We really want to beat them. It's like you're very rarely going to a Sunderland Newcastle game, which has got it's not the same level of intensity, but at this level, they're probably the team that feels like a derby. Yeah. And I think you want to beat them that much. You cheer every throw and you cheer every tackle, and I think maybe that could work in Jack Ross and the team's benefit. Which brings me the question: do you play Chris Maguire?
Absolutely. Especially after the playoffs as well. Like you see that playoff game against Portsmouth at home,
getting the ball chucked off his head again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but he's got to start on Saturday for me, mainly because Jack Ross has to go for it. I think Jack Ross he's in a situation now where he's either got to shit or get off the pot, basically. He's got to come out, he's got to go for it, because I don't think he's got more than, if he loses on Saturday, he hasn't got more than 3 or 4 more games left in him. So I think he's either got to come out and he's got to go for it, and he's got to go for the next 5 or 6 games if he gets that far, to try and, dampen the talk of should he stay, should he go and whatnot. So for me, I think we're either going to go out, we're going to be in Michelle, we'll get caught out early, and it'll be just, it'll be walkouts on 60 minutes. Or conversely, we could go the complete opposite direction, Maguire, King Shithouse, and, be 3-0 up inside half an hour, and everyone's going, well, what we're worried about.
Yeah. I don't know if Chris listens to this, but if he does, I just want to tell him I love him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love
definitely.
You, Chris.
If he wants to come round for tea, he's more than welcome.
Do you love him, Sam? Do you love Chris?
Unconditionally, especially after the playoff. Kind of, no one tops him after what he did against Portsmouth.
Do you love him, Danny?
I know Chris was teammates with him at Rotherham a couple of years ago.
Were you?
Yeah, he was.
Is he a good lad? Is he the right person to put in for a game?
He wants to win. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he can make things happen. And as I say, there'll be 3 or 4 of them sat on the bench there thinking, listen, some of these boys aren't pulling up trees at the minute. Give us a chance, Gaffer, And as I say, going to the cup game. Is it the cup game on Tuesday night?
Yeah.
There'll be one chomping at the bit to get out there and push for a starting place on Saturday, I'd imagine.
Just really quickly on Maguire, Danny. Yes. Is Maguire the kind of player where you would have not enjoyed playing against him because of his physicality.
Yeah,
and his,
I
you
mean,
know, that
funny
aggression
enough,
he's got.
You played us pre-season last year at Grimsby, and he played
Yeah.
up top against us. But I know him well, so we were having a bit more of a chat on the pitch, really, if you like, and just going over a few things. But no, he's quite a little, your narky type of player. I think, if as you've seen in the Portsmouth games, and he's the pantomime villain now, isn't he?
Yeah.
But no, as I say, he's one you want on your team on a pitch in a big game. He's always got that one sort of bit of magic in him. Really, he can either create an assist, or as seen the goal he scored last year there. So I'd certainly be looking at to get him started at the weekend.
I think just to touch on Maguire and just to totally end on this, and it's not a good thing because what's happening to Bury at the minute is terrible. We're talking about king shithouses.
Oh,
Somebody posted on Instagram about Bury, unfortunately, and I really hope they don't, potentially going out of business. And Chris Maguire decided to like that post. King shithouse of king shithouses. So if anyone ever doubted this shithousery,
he's
he's
committed.
next level. He's
committed to the
that.
cause, isn't he? That's the thing. It's that is Diego Costa levels of shithouse. He's up there with the best.
So that's our second and my first hosting job. I hope I did all right. I'm sure Alex will be back next week, or maybe even Josh back next week, because Alex is swanning off somewhere in America, because some of us can have holidays apparently. But Danny, you've got a flight back to Brazil to catch.
Yeah.
Friendly game to play up front. Tom, you're just going back home.
Rugby's on for me this afternoon,
The
so
rugby.
watch Wales go #1, fingers crossed.
Oh no, not another one.
Aye.
We've got 2 Welshmen in here today. Sorry, Sam. Solidarity.
Right.
So Sam, are we gonna what are we doing? Heading home.
I'm going to Paris tomorrow for.
Oh, so more of us can have
more
holidays, not
holidays.
just brilliant. Well, I'm going back to Glasgow.
It's nice to see Brexit isn't hitting all of us in the pocket anyway.
No, evidently not yet anyway. But thanks very much, lads. Enjoy your holiday, you bastard,
Cheers.
to Paris, and enjoy Wales, I guess.
I suppose we'll see come fall.
Right. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you very
Spot
much.
on.